Last week, the CBC family was dealt a severe blow. We had a loss to the CBC family. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you before we start this program if we could have a moment of silence for Miss Liz. Thank you. My name is Keith Willis. I'm the Vice President of the CBC Parents Club, and by luck of the draw, again, you have me 2 years in a row as your Master of Ceremonies, and I promise to keep the program rolling. But you got a bonus this year. I brought my bride of 18 years. She's the one selling the pot of gold tickets, and she told me to remind you one's for $5, and there's a lot more for $20. Please buy. I did it, honey. Also, I get 2 other special guests. I'm so proud to have my nephew and godson, Jordan Nelson, who's a senior at CBC, join me this year. Thank you, Jordan. And my junior. Time flies when you're having fun. My junior son, Keon Anthony Willis. Thank you for joining me. When they were younger, it was much easier to throw them in the car, go to McDonald's, and then go some Sesame Street. It was much easier, but now they're older, they've got jobs and girlfriends, cars, things like that. So a little harder to get them here tonight, but thank you for joining me. At this time, I'd like to invite the CBC chaplain, Father DePorres, for the invocation.
Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Dear God, we come to you with hearts filled with bittersweet emotions, still sad for the events of last week, but grateful for each other, and grateful for the support and the brotherhood that sometimes we take for granted. We ask you to bless our evening together, to bless the food that we are about to receive, and to always keep our hearts generous for those who are not as fortunate. And we ask all this in the name of Jesus, who is Lord forever and ever. Amen. St. John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts. Forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Dinner is served. Last year. Okay, so last year's jokes won't work this year. Okay. Quite a few of them. Well, we're glad that you're returning. So some of you are here for the very first year. I know I was so moved last year that I asked my nephew to come with me this year. Great program, great way to honor fathers. And this next portion of the program is probably one of my favorite. As the father of 5, I take being a father very, very seriously. And so this is really, really special. So if this is your first time, I think you'll want to pay attention to this part of the program. It's my pleasure to introduce the president of CBC, Mr. Michael Jordan, with the presentations of the Fathers of the Year Awards.
How about that voice? Murr and I were sitting over here and he said, it's like late night radio. I said, yeah, like in a smoke-filled room or something. We just love it. And then Keith said, I got a cold too. Just as deep as last year. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being here. I just said you all, didn't I? I'm a Kentucky boy, so sorry about that. But it's important to be here. I even see grandpas out there and uncles as well. So we congratulate you for doing that and bringing other men in your family, valuable members of your family. But it's important that you be here. We got about 400 here tonight, and it's good to come together and celebrate. As I say Murray. Mr. Murray basically said on KCBC, it's a memorable event. You're not going to forget being here. So again, I congratulate you for being here. I want to take an opportunity. We're changing up the agenda here a little bit with the approval of our chair here. I'm going to introduce Tom first, have him talk, and then we'll get to the Fathers of the Year as such. But I want to take the opportunity to thank Sean, Bobby, the members of the Parents Club. Sean, why don't you sit up? Where's Bobby? Bob. There you are. In the back of the room are, of course, the ladies who are the spine behind it as well. We thank you, ladies. Look at each other. Thank you very much for welcoming us. You know what happens here is that Sean, as Jack is a senior, so he's stepping aside and Bob gets to take the reins. Evans, looking at your young men here, you're going to have the reins for a little while, aren't you? 2 years? 2 years? Oh, very good. Thank you very much for making this evening possible for all of us. Again, it's a special evening. Murr sent me, I don't know how many pages of resume, and he said, you have the liberty to cut it down or do whatever you'd like to do. So I took about a 4 or 5 pager down to about 2 pages. And I kept looking at it and go, I've known this man for a long time, and it's like the accomplishments of this man. It's like, I found it hard to take a lot out. But so if you would bear with me, I'm going to talk a little bit about Tom, who's going to be our guest speaker tonight at this event. Tom is in his 38th year on the faculty of CBC, where he serves as a I want to dispel the rumor here. Just because he's a guest speaker doesn't mean he's retired. I won't let him do that. He promised me 2 or 3 more years, so we're going to have her around for 41, 42 or something. He has served as the director of the Seri Players and the co-chair of the Department of Fine and Performing Arts. During his tenure at CBC, he has also coached swimming and track, moderated the Student Council, the Irish American Literary Society, the Film and Video Club, the Men of Substance Triumph, which is a spirit organization, the Gourmet Society, the National Honor Society, and also he's been the executive director of KCBC. You listed a lot of the subjects that you taught. I'm basically going to use an English term. Brother Cruz would enjoy this one. He has taught a plethora of courses in his tenure at CBC. Mr. Murray recently directed his 125th show here at CBC. These include Macbeth, Othello, Les Mis, Jekyll and Hyde, and High School Musical. During his tenure as department head of the Fine and Performing Arts course offerings have expanded from 8 courses to 50. 50 courses. At any one time, he tells me here, I'm sure Tim will agree, that 2/3 of the individuals going to school are taking a course in the Performing Arts department. As an actor, Mr. Murray has appeared at the Muni, Stages, Theater Factory, the New Theater, Histrionics. I've got to turn my own light on. Insight, Max and Louis, and other theaters in St. Louis, and toured nationally in Fiddler on the Roof, My Fair Lady, Evita, Guys and Dolls, and 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. You guys know this stuff? I mean, did you know this about him, though? This is amazing. As a director, first as an actor, now as a director, he has staged shows at St. Louis University, Clayton High School, the Bates Arts Players, the Archangel Players, the New Jewish Theater, the Kirkwood Theater Guild, and the West End Players. He has appeared in commercial videos from clients ranging from Schnucks to Amber Nui. As a singer, Mr. Murray has performed in many classical choirs, including the St. Louis Magical Singers, the Symphony Chorus. He has toured the country and sang in venues as varied as St. Patrick's Cathedral and the Kennedy Center. He is one of the founding directors and coordinated master classes for the Muni teens, and has served on the facilities for COTA, Kropinski Academy of Dance, Leaping Lizards Performing Art Show, the Stages Academy, and the Kirkwood Theater Guild. Mr. Murray also coaches college-bound theater students, helping to prepare them for their college auditions. Mr. Murray's diverse interests include cooking, blues hockey, the Cardinals, trivia, and film. He is married and his lovely wife, Stacy, reside in West County. What a Renaissance man, you know, we have in our presence. 38 years, beloved Murray, please come and give us all your words of wisdom, please.
Thank you, Michael. I remember sitting in Michael Jordan's office when I was a graduate student at St. Louis U, about to get my master's degree and looking for a job, and he interviewed me for the teaching job at CBC, and I was so frightened of the idea of going to a classroom and teaching young men. It turned out that it was a very fortuitous event in my life. But the irony of me giving a speech today about fathers and sons is that I don't have any sons. So I originally questioned, why am I doing this? And Tim Seymour said something to me. He said, well, Murr, we all have fathers. I said, well, yeah, you're right. I do. I have a great father. And I want to talk a little bit about him tonight. And I suppose that in the 38 years I've been at CBC that I may have affected hundreds or so of young men over the years. So I guess I have something that I can say, although I can't hold a candle to all of the dads here tonight. Because it's like babysitting. Once it's over, you send them home. So I'm very, very proud to be here, and I'm honored. I know I struggled early in my teaching career with my responsibilities as a role model. They always told you in ed classes that you're a role model for your students, but I was only a few years older than the students. Many of the students I taught had gone to school with their brothers. So it was difficult for me to kind of figure out where I was. Naturally, I turned to one man that I thought and knew could help. That was my dad, George Rathel Murray. Tony, if we could have a slide. And there's my dad. Yeah, it's a cute little guy, isn't he? That picture of my father was taken when he was 4 years old. Now, he was born in 1915 to George E. Murray and Dorothy Rathel Murray, my grandparents. And although my grandmother was a Methodist, my dad was raised as a Catholic. He graduated from St. Roch's grade school in the central west end of St. Louis, but then he went to Blewett Junior High in the St. Louis Public Schools and graduated from Soldan High School, where he was elected class president. You know, it was the Depression, and when he graduated, there was no way the family could afford to send him to college, so he went right to work. We go to slide 2. I just thought you'd like to see the family resemblance. That's me. First Holy Communion in St. Patrick's Parish in University City, a parish that, of course, doesn't exist anymore. It's now St. Andrew Kim. But that was me. Of course, I've never looked so pious since. We go to slide 3. Now, this is my dad, as probably a lot of his friends knew it. He was a cool single dude in the early 1950s at this point. Now, in 1933, when he graduated from high school, he had to go right to work. So he went to work for Union Electric, which is the predecessor to Ameren UE. He started as a file clerk in the treasurer's office. After a number of years there, he moved to the secretary's department. When he retired in 1982, he was the corporate secretary, responsible for the firm's records, the secretary to the board, and in charge of all their securities. Our whole family was extremely proud of my father and how he'd come up from high school graduate to corporate executive. We worked in the same place for 49 years. I guess that kind of runs in the family. He lived a bachelor's life throughout the 1930s and 40s. I know from all the stories I heard from his friends that he must have had a pretty good time. He hung out in the playground of the DeBoliver Strip in St. Louis, and he was a denizen of downtown when downtown really was a hopping place to be. He knew every hangout. And if you knew my dad, you knew he knew every watering hole. Now look at that carefree guy with his sunglasses sitting on the beach. He was living the life of Riley. Then he met a young secretary at Union Electric. Her name was Mary Catherine Minster. She was a product of a German and Irish family. But she was Katie to my dad and pretty much everybody else who ever knew her. They began dating, and like a lot of friendships, they evolved into love. And later, marriage. Marriage on November 10th, 1951. Now this will tell you a little bit about my dad, how clever he was. His birthday is November 10th. So not only did he get married on his birthday, he also ensured that he would never, ever forget his anniversary. Slide 4. Life became more complicated for my dad on October 18, 1953. Baby Tommy. 4 more children would follow. My brother Rick, my sister Joan, my brother Bob, and my baby brother Joe, whose son Matthew graduated from CBC last year. A full house of good Catholic names. Dad's life centered on his family. Now, though he liked to work, and he worked long hours, he always had time for us when he would come home, no matter how tired he was. Some days, he would stop on the way home and pick up White Castles or pizza. And if you know, back in the late 50s, early 60s, pizza, they didn't deliver it to your house. You had to go to the place and stop and pick it up. However, sometimes he would forget to tell my mom that he was stopping to pick up food after she'd already cooked the meal. Naturally, we kids wanted what Dad brought, which would cause a little consternation in the Murray household. When he had to work on Saturdays, which was often, he would give my mom a break and take some of us to work with him. My brother Rick and I especially loved to go downtown. He knew exactly every inch of downtown, and we loved going to his office on 12th Street. Even sometimes we would get to go to lunch at one of the haunts that he hung out at all week. We'd go in there and he'd bring us in, and all the guys would be in there, and they'd be like, "Hey, you're kids, that's great." But the ultimate thrill was we got to get a haircut from his barber. Didn't have to get a haircut from Mom. He gave us love. Maybe not so many material things, but we had experiences. Our vacations, well, they were a little weird. we might end up going to a Union Electric power plant. He'd like to go take us to the power plants. And the Murray kids really knew Tom Sauk Mountain and really knew Keokuk, Iowa. He and Mom often took us down to Gaslight Square or to the Developer Strip. Now, that was kind of weird. You know, those were bars and nightclubs, and the Murrays took their children. So my education was interesting. I saw some very fascinating people, but I heard some incredible jazz music over the years. And I was really amazed that all of my classmates at school had never been to Gaslight Square or heard Dixieland jazz. I thought, well, okay, you're missing out. When you were walking with my father, it was hard to keep up with him. He was the fastest walker I ever met. I later found out that it was in his genes to be fast. But he was a quick person, and when you got a bunch of little kids, you kept up with Dad or you got left behind. One of the things we never did was get fast food. My father did not believe in McDonald's or Burger King or places like that. So much so that he would refuse to go. His idea of fast food was Steak and Shake, where we'd take the peppers out of the pepper sauce and put them all over his hamburger. And I was like, how can I do that? One time when my dad was 75, I took him on a trip to Cooperstown, just two of us. Let's go for a little road trip, Dad. I thought that would be kind of fun. But the deal was we couldn't stop at any fast food restaurants anywhere. So we were in upstate New York. We would stop at these small little cafes. Seriously, it was like the predecessor of diners, drive-ins, and dives. My dad was way ahead of time. We once found a place where the guy was a Culinary Institute grad who later went on to be the James Beard winner about 5 years later. But most of all, my dad liked music. Mostly jazz, but he listened to everything. No matter what format, when it was 78s, there were thousands of them in the house. 33 RPMs, hundreds of them. Cassette tapes, he had racks of cassette tapes, and when DVDs came in, or CDs came in, boxes full, everywhere. He didn't know, there was not a stereo component that he didn't love or buy. He was an avid reader, too, and instilled that love of reading in his kids. He had plenty of time to read, too. He read about an hour every morning, and he read about an hour every night, because my father took the bus to work every day. He didn't drive. My dad never learned to drive a car. He was a city guy. You know, he was used to streetcars. He lived right on the streetcar line growing up. He took buses everywhere. He knew all the taxi cab drivers, but he never, ever drove a car. Knowing my dad's temperament, I'm not too sad that he never drove a car. When we finally moved from U City, which was close to all those streetcar lines, we moved to Chesterfield. Somebody had to drive, so my mom went. And we finally bought a car. We didn't have a car for the first 12 years of my life. Dad quickly became a student of cars, even though he didn't drive. You know, we had the requisite family truckster, the big station wagon. We had 5 kids, so we had to have room. That was before minivans. If any of you young guys don't know what a big station wagon looked like, ask your parents. So we had that. And as more of us learned to drive, he kept buying more cars. Sometimes he scored. He bought a '69 Camaro, which was pretty cool. But then he also bought a '73 Chevy Vega. Yeah. So people are laughing. You know what I'm talking about. The aluminum block engine, which cracked, blew up. I may have had something to do with that. But I was forgiven. But the best story about my father in cars is what he did with my sister. My sister was a very sensible, serious young lady. And he told her, go out and research cars. You're going to get a car. I'm going to buy you a car. You're my only girl. You're daddy's princess. We're going to buy you a car. So my sister and my mom went over to Cribbs Ford City. Some of you guys will remember that. Cribbs Ford City, looking at Fords, because Dad liked American cars, so by God, she picked out a sensible 4-door sedan, and then she and Dad and Mom went over to buy the car. And my dad looked at it and said, this is not good enough. Now, it was okay for the sons to be driving old Beeters, but not the daughter. So my father bought her a brand new Mustang, orange, which was her favorite color, and then bought her a vanity plate, one of the first vanity plates that said pumpkin, which was, that was her nickname. So we're like, really, Dad? You bought her a Mustang? I think I was driving a 62 Mercury Comet. When we were all out and gone, and there was no need for the family truckster anymore, my dad, who was by this time in his 60s, and my mom, actually my dad was 70, my mom had just turned 60, my dad bought him a Camaro for himself, for my mom to drive, with a huge V8 engine. Believe me, that shook up the neighborhood. Watched the Murrays speeding through Chesterfield in a Camaro. It also shook up the parish, and most of us were like, really, Dad? You bought a Camaro? But mostly I remember that my dad came to see all my shows. Whether I was in them, or whether I was directing them, or I was appearing at the Muni, or all the shows at CBC. He only missed one in all the years before he passed away. One show in all those years. So it was pretty amazing. I remember he was very proud that I became a teacher. I remember that. What else did he teach me? Well, nothing. Really nothing. He wasn't a teacher. He didn't have lots of little talks. He didn't have little lectures. He didn't sit you down and tell you the way things were going to be. Now, and definitely never preached. That wasn't my dad. So when he did actually say, hey, I want to talk to you about something, you really paid attention because you knew it took a lot for him to want to take the time to talk to you, because that just wasn't him. My mom, on the other hand, all the time. She'd be talking to you, telling you what to do, blah, blah, blah. Not my dad. My dad let her do all that stuff, and he just did the other things, whatever they were. But if your dad talks to you, and he doesn't talk very much, you pay attention. Instead, I think what my dad did instead of teaching was model behaviors that I know were the types of things he wanted all of us to see in case we became parents. He knew he loved you when he looked at you. He had this sort of an impish Irish grin and twinkling eyes that became very animated when he looked at his wife or any of his kids. He was scrupulously honest. Now, I'm sure if he had cut some corners and made some compromises, he may have gone further up the corporate ladder. That just wasn't his style. Most importantly, he taught me how to love and to accept love from others. He showed me, I guess in his love for his mom, for my mom, how to be a good life partner. You know, my parents sometimes fought, as all parents do, but they were also quick to make up with a very public display of affection that I guess I probably thought was kind of gross when I was a kid. But now that I'm a little older, I try to emulate that. That when my wife and I have any kind of a spat, we make up as fast as we can. And I think today my brothers would agree that we all chose strong women to be our companions because that's what my dad did. He didn't tell us what to do. He showed us what to do. Can we go to the next slide, please? There he is again, my dad. Remember that guy? He turned out to be a great man and a wonderful father. But he never knew his own dad. Next one. That's my grandpa. George E. Murray, attorney at law, graduate of St. Louis University and St. Louis University Law School, and a member of the St. Louis University Athletic Hall of Fame. He was a world champion 100-yard dash runner around the time of the Olympics in St. Louis. He died of the Spanish flu when my dad was 4. So my dad grew up in a single-parent household, which, as you know, in the 1920s was a pretty rare situation. He didn't have the advantage of having a good role model. And like I did, and you all do, but he didn't. Honestly, I don't know how he turned out to be such a great father, because he learned it all on the fly. But he inspired me to be like him. And when some of the young men I was teaching began to ask me questions like, what do you think, Mr. Murray? What should I do, Mr. Murray? Does anybody care? Well, I went to my dad, and I asked him for help. I said, what do I say? It was very rare talk that I had with him, and I remember it distinctly because we were sitting at the kitchen table having a martini. I said, what do I do? And he told me, you know what? Listen to them. Show them you care about them. Don't ignore them, even if you're busy or you're tired. Support them. If they fall down, pick them up, just like I've had to do with you a few times. Just try to be happy around them. Show them that you're living a good life. Pretty simple. Next slide. Well, I went to this dinner in 1997 as a dad. One of my favorite students, Bernard Cummings, asked me to go with him. He lived with his grandmother and really wanted to go just once in his 4 years. He wanted to go in his senior year. He wanted to go to the Father Son Banquet. He asked me to go with him, he said, because I was the closest thing to a father that he had ever had. Bernard was one of my actors and a brilliant singer. He's still one of the best singers in town. Does a lot of recording. And he's just a fantastic guy. Works at Washington University, and he's made a great life for himself. And he's a dad. Isn't that great? I know that Bernard, like my father, has turned out to be a great father, even though he had no father in his life. You know, my brother Bob, who's here tonight somewhere in the back with my nephew Alex, who's a freshman at CBC. Bob said of my dad, he said, the first thing I would say about Dad is he was selfless. And I think any good father has to be the same. I think that any mentor, teacher, or coach must also be selfless. Next one. Those are my parents. Now, I miss my dad. He passed away in 1998. I gave the eulogy at his funeral mass, and in the congregation that morning were dozens of my sons, my CBC boys. I miss my dad and my mom every day. I wish I could tell my dad how much I loved him, because certainly I didn't do that enough while he was alive. I guess I know now what a brilliant man he was, but I never told him. I want to call him on the phone and have him chat with me for a few minutes, and like he did on almost every phone call, ask me a few minutes later, you want to talk to your mother? Knowing full well that she wanted to talk to me, but she was too stubborn to call any of her kids. Sometimes she would call us and say, you want to talk to your mother? Sure, Dad. I want to laugh with him again. I want to share a martini with him again. I want to tell him how much he meant to me. But I can't. Boys, this is a great night. Never forget this evening. Cherish the bond you have with your father. As you know, as much as we here at CBC help to make you men for tomorrows and brothers for life, the man most responsible for making you who you are and who you'll be in the future is sitting right next to you. And he always will be. Thank you.
Outstanding, Murph. I've really listened to a lot of these over the years, personalities, sports celebrities, coaches, owners of teams. They all talked about Father. This one was special. I hope you guys of CBC are listening to him. That man next to you, your father, is special. And he'll be there for you. Why don't you get up and give him a hug? Come on, guys. Thank you for doing that. That's special. At this time, I want to have those seniors that I've been talking to over the last couple of weeks to come forward. We'll let Mark go first. Dad's not feeling so well, so we want to be conscious of that.
Hello everybody, my name is Mark Rearling and I'm a senior here at CUC High School. Throughout my years at CUC, I've experienced so much. I've taken part in both the basketball program and the baseball program, and I've always taken pride in my grades. I would never have been able to accomplish as much as I have at CUC without my father, Dan Vera. He has helped me and my older brother through high school and will continue to help us while we are away at college. My father goes to as many sporting events at CUC as he can, helps out the baseball field for Coach Horn, respects and supports everybody he meets, and is a great role model in the CUC community. I thank my dad for everything he has done for me while at CUC, and I thank him for sending me to CUC. Even though he went to SLU and was the all-time leading scorer in the recount during the school's history, he still felt as if CUC was a place we were supposed to send his son to. Thank you.
Come on, Dan, you gotta come up here.
Hello, I'm Jackie again. Really proud to give my dad this award because he got cut from the sophomore soccer team, so he hasn't had a whole lot of that. Yeah, my dad's Sean Egan. His full name is Timothy Sean Egan, but he's always been called Sean. When his father named him this, people would always ask him why he didn't just make his first name Sean. And he would then reply, when you have a kid, you can name whatever you want. And his father also had the spelling of his name be Sean, S-H-A-W-N, instead of the more common S-E-A-N. And upon the question as to why he did this, his answer was again, when you have a son, you can name whatever you want. So my grandfather was a straight shooter. My dad definitely inherited this from his father, and I thank God every day for that. Throughout my life, he has seen me try pretty much everything, whether it was sports, learning a new skill, or anything along those lines. He was there. And especially at a young age, you look for your father's approval for pretty much everything. So when I tried something that I wasn't too good at, which didn't happen a lot, I would always like to hear what he had to say. And it was for this reason why I'm thankful that he is like his father, because if I was not good at something, he'd recognize it. Obviously, he wasn't out to hurt a little kid's feelings by saying he sucked at soccer or something, but he wasn't. He always let me down in the easy way by saying, I'm going to try something different, or maybe if you work extra hard, you'll get it. And I'm definitely happy he did this. I wouldn't go into a sport or hobby thinking I was the best, and obviously I was not. So my dad's always been involved in the CBC community, and on top of sending me and my two older brothers through CBC after he graduated in '94, he was the treasurer and president of the Parents Club, president of the lacrosse club for 2 years, and chair of the Father Son Banquet for 2 years. So if you have any complaints, you know who to go to. I'm not going to lie, after my first freshman Father Son Banquet, after my freshman year, I knew I was going to have to give this speech, but that didn't stop me from procrastinating and writing it last night. So, a son's relationship with his father is something so special that doesn't make sense sometimes. When I was a kid, about yay high, I always wanted to walk next to my dad. Anytime we would walk anywhere, I just felt safe being next to him, mostly from my older brothers. But more often than not, I would be walking next to him and just so happened to be the perfect height to get elbow in the head when he would be swinging his arm, how people do when they walk. So just walking along, boom, elbow to the head. Obviously he didn't mean it, at least I hope he didn't. And he would always apologize very sincerely, and I would forgive him, we'd be on our way. Well, when it would happen the second or even third time, boom, elbow to the head. He'd say, if you don't want to get elbow in the head, just walk a little bit in front or a little bit behind me. And I'd say, okay, and we'd keep walking. But I never wanted to walk anywhere but right by his side, even through the occasional elbows. That's what a father and son's relationship is, a consistent side-by-side walk through life. And I'd like to thank my father for staying by my side through our walk through life so far. Even through the elbows, he is the reason I am who I am today, and the model for the man I want to be in the future. Thank you, Dad. I love you.
Hello everybody, I'm Brent Bledsoe. My uncle's sitting right over there, right by Damon Jones, if you know who that is. Yeah. Although this award is titled Father of the Year, this award goes out to all the uncles, grandfathers, guardians, and men who stepped up and took the role as a father in somebody's life. I've learned throughout my own life the word father is not necessarily a biological father, but instead a man that treats you like his own flesh and blood and puts you before himself. That being said, my uncle has become a father to me in many ways over the years I've spent with him. Through good times and bad, I know he'll always be there for me, and he has shown me that many times in the past. My Uncle Mike has been a CBC father for nearly 7 years. He has not only been there for me, but also he has been by the side of my brother and my cousin that have also passed through CBC and now alumni. That is what you call a commitment to his sons and to his school. In closing, I would like to say this award, to me, is not awarded only because of my uncle's time with me at CBC. It's awarded because the steady influence he put on me throughout my whole entire life, not just at CBC. Throughout good and bad, he has been there for me, and that's more than I can ever ask for. The fact that I would not be here talking on this mic without the help of my uncle speaks volumes of what he has done for me and my brother, and my appreciation can't be described in words. I love you, Uncle Mike. Thank you for everything.
Good evening. My name is James Castiglione. I'm here with my dad, also James Castiglione. My father is a little Italian man from the hill, graduated from CBC on Clayton Road in 1972 and has since been active in the CBC community. Being a St. Louis native, he is proud of his high school, very proud. I like to believe the school made him into the man he was today, but all the stories I've heard seem to have just got a lot of punishment. I think that's how he got that. Seriously, I don't know why he's so hard on me. Like, honestly, you did so much. Like, anyway, back to the speech. We'll talk about it in the car. Over the course of 8 years, my brother Anthony and I have spent at the school my father has been busy paying the school back for what it did for him. Whether it be auctions, tailgates, or just trivia nights, my dad has given, along with my mom. I know this is Father Son Banquet, but she also does a ton, just like the honor here now. Along with his commitments to CBC, my father has dedicated his entire life to me, my brother, and my mother. I can never repay him for the opportunity and the example he has given me. His whole life has been put into me. Almost everything he does is for me and for the family, and I think that speaks volumes. He is the most selfless man I've ever met. My dad's extraordinary commitment to this school and to my family is just who I want to be. And I'm honored to present this award and extremely honored to call him my father. I love you, Dad. Thank you.
Alrighty, mine's not going to be nearly as long as any of those, but honestly, I have no idea what my dad has done to contribute to the CBC community, but I know a lot how he has contributed to my life. In my eyes, nobody deserves this award more than my dad, and the proof is all in the past year and a half. For those that don't know, and hold on. For those of you that don't know, I had a spinal cord injury in July of 2015. Since that day, my dad hasn't left my side. He's pushed me when I needed him most, comforted me when I got down, and put his life aside to help me get better. The amount of sacrifice and love that I received from my dad is unparalleled and deserves to be noticed. So thank you, Dad. I don't know how on earth I could have gotten to where I am today without you guiding me. I love you.
Throughout Gus, my older brother Zach, and my life, our dad has always been there to support us in whatever we want to do or learn. It's become more and more noticeable as we've grown up and become more independent. But looking back, he has consistently shown equal attention to all of us as we needed. It started out when we were young. Our dad would be extremely involved in developing our skills, especially when he was coaching our soccer teams and teaching us how to live for them. He He gave us a foundation to expand upon on our own time when we got older. He never pressured us to make a decision, but instead guided us when we needed it and was there to pick us up when we messed up. As we got a little older, he became less and less directly involved in sports and academic lives. He still watches over all three of us, attending all our events such as swimmings, football games, and checking on our older brother in LA. But now most of what he does is behind the scenes. He sets up our vacations, maintains the cars, and all the things that are essential but do not need to be done daily, which has allowed us to become more and more independent as we approach college and going out into the real world.
A few exceptions, he has done basically the same with me, but throughout the last 2 years, I have noticed a lot of what he has done and what he will do for his kids. Everything from going with me for sport when I wanted to get my scuba license to being the first one to ask what the process would be like for donating a kidney and if he was eligible. It seems that his love for us is unending, and that is why I believe he deserves to be Dad of the Year.
How about a last round of applause?